Tennis biomechanics is a new science which helps convert information about the way players move into highly focused training techniques. Paul Rotert runs the high-performance program for the US Tennis Association.
I do think that tennis players have to be athletes as much as soccer players or basketball players or many other sports. You cannot just be a tennis player and be able to hit the ball. The movement patterns have changed so much. There's a lot of movement involved. A typical point might last 5 to 10 seconds, a long point. Within that time period, you might see 4 to 5 direction changes. Therefore, there's a lot of athleticism needed. We look at power, strength, speed, agility, flexibility, quickness. There's a lot of these different components that are really needed for all tennis players to be good nowadays.
Rotert charts a player's development by regular testing. An important new tool for this is the FastTech system, which is connected to a floor mat containing sensors. It helps players to improve balance skills, which are vital when hitting the ball.
Okay, very good. Now we're going to look at your right leg. Do the same exercise standing on that platform. Okay, let's go. Very stable, nice. Okay, very good. It looked like you were a little bit more stable on the left side than you were on the right side. We've now looked at how stable you are in the still position. We're going to look at some movement positions from here on in. Okay, number 3, and then get going. Good. A few more. Very good. Keep going, keep going. 10 cycles right here. A few more. Excellent. Good. That one was actually a little bit better.
Getting to the ball is half the battle in tennis. This test trains a player to keep their equilibrium while on the run and change direction quickly. All these exercises are designed to create natural symmetry in a player.
You're swinging the racket with your right hand, and so you're doing things on the right side of your body more than on the left side.
Forehand cross court. Good.
All the tennis strokes move in a forward direction,
okay,
so the forehand is hit forward, the serve is hit forward. Therefore, the musculature in the front of the body tends to get stronger, whereas the muscles in the back tend to lengthen.
Okay, forehand.
The new, bigger racket has created a different style of tennis. Graphite rackets weigh up to 40% less than wood, transforming the way players move on court.
Players now don't have to turn sideways as they used to do so much in tennis, but they can actually stay in an open stance position and swing from that open stance position.
The strong swing from the waist works a different set of muscles. Exercising these with a medicine ball helps put power behind the stroke.
We're going to toss it on my forehand side. Stay with me, Casey. Here we go. 7.
And once you begin to move differently, you hold the racket differently too. Forget about those simple old-fashioned forehand and backhand grips.
What players have done is they've migrated more towards the side here, where the racket face closes, where it goes from an Eastern forehand grip to what's called a semi-Western grip to even a full Western grip. And this is what's considered a full Western grip, so that players actually make contact in this position, which in a static position looks very awkward. But if you see it dynamically, it makes for a movement pattern that allows for a lot of topspin. The topspin allows the ball to stay in the court more, so I can hit the ball harder, but still make the ball stay in the court. Now on the backhand side, a lot of the players nowadays hit with a two-handed backhand. You'll see basically 2 types of grips. One is a standard Eastern backhand grip with the knuckle on top, which is what one-handed players hit with. But the second way would be to keep the forehand grip more and then add the other hand on top, so that the backhand really can be hit in 2 different ways, as a one-handed backhand, or it could be hit almost like a left-handed forehand.
Whatever the grip, the aggressive, dynamic style of today's players has made the art of topspin a central feature of the game. Topspin is created when the racket strokes upwards across the ball. The wider the racket, the longer the ball can stay in contact with the strings, with less chance of clipping the frame. but the ball has to be hit 50% harder than a shot without spin. Here's the path of a ball hit without any spin. When you add topspin, it curves the ball higher, then drops more quickly into the court. On the bounce, it rises higher. Today's game demands hard-hitting, wristy shots and quick, sudden movements of the body. But this high-energy game has its costs. Shoulder and lower back injuries are common. Injury is a constant fear for players. Pat Cash's career was overshadowed by it.
My injury list is long. It really sort of started when I was about 19. I hurt my back. I then had knee problems. My knees are kind of strange knees. My physios and surgeons sort of go, oh, they're very tight knees. So I was always going to have knee problems. Unfortunately, it just kept reoccurring and reoccurring.
4 years ago, Cash turned to Australian sports scientist Brad Langevad for help. Langevad has devised a system for tackling injury by identifying a player's poor technique. He's helped save Cash's career. But he also works with young players like Britain's Simon Dixon to prevent bad habits setting in.
A lot of things I've been taught from an early age set in my mind, and now I've sort of get rid of those ideas. You know, once I started to do that, then it came along very quickly.
Langevad and colleague Melinda Glenister recorded and analysed the technique of hundreds of players to find out if the perfect shot existed.
I measured all the top service angles, for example, or forehands, backhands, and various angles of the top performers. But basically, I found out what I had hoped is that there is an ideal action, and that once you remove the idiosyncrasies, you can come up with an ideal model.
Langevad found near perfection in the service action of Goran Ivanisevic and Richard Krajicek. Boris Becker's backhand, Andre Agassi's forehand, and these days, Pat Cash's forehand.
My technique was kept breaking down. One day my serve would be good, next day it'd be terrible. One day my forehand would be good, next day it'd be terrible. And I got to the stage where I was either going to retire or really change something. And so I took the big step to say, okay, who can help me? And I thought, well, Brad, he's the perfect one.
Move back a little bit on the lower ones.
Langevad saw that Cash's serve and forehand were contributing to his problems.
And you can see here he's way too side on with his old forehand, so he moved his body position around to face the court more. You can see looking here against Andre Agassi how Andre's stomach and back coming around with the feet to hit the ball. And the lines all coming around, so Agassi has every part of his body lining up together, and Pat's lines are all fighting all the way up and down. So this is the new Pat Cash forehand, where he's moved his feet position around. Much more freedom now for the body to come around with the racket. See how the lines are all now lining up.
Brad and Melinda's work has enabled Cash to stay on the veterans circuit.
For me, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was absolutely fantastic. It's like when you have an illness, you don't know what's wrong, all of a sudden somebody goes, oh, I can cure you, I know what to do, and fixes it. It's like, wow, a new lease on life.
Another beneficiary of Langevad's work was Britain's Greg Rosetsky.
Well, Greg's game was dragging him down into the below 100 in the rankings, and his body was falling apart as well. I think he reached a crisis point where he was basically considering retiring.
Rosetsky's mighty serve was putting pressure on his back. Using Goran Ivanisevic as a model, Langevad was able to redesign his technique and help Rosetsky climb back up the rankings. Now Rosetsky's new serve is one of Langevad's perfect shots, a model for 20-year-old Dixon.
You're bending a little bit too much, just like if you were walking like that. Okay, Simon, this is your serve before we worked on it. compared to Greg Rosetsky, who's close to our ideal model action. You see how the
According to Langevad, Dixon, seen here on the right, was heading for potential injury because he was bending his knees too low and pointing them too far towards the back of the court.
This is the serve after we worked on it. Okay, the starting position's much better, and the knees are much straighter. Look at the hip angle now. It's going to make it a lot more easier to bring your torso around to the ball in the court. This is much straighter. See how the body's moving towards the ball in the court now?
Yeah.
Coming around. See the feet are coming around more? Okay, looking from the side. It's looking better, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks a lot better. I felt a massive difference between the two serves. The very first time I tried it, just moving my feet around was felt like a really big change. When I go back to my L serve now, it feels just feels awkward.
But no matter how technically perfect a player might be, tennis is also a game played in the mind. In part 3, we find out how science is helping these athletes get mentally tough.